This is KARE 11 Extras, and this is where we take the extra time to explore the issues that mean the most to Minnesotans. And this time, it's about an area of our state that is truly beloved, the boundary waters of northern Minnesota. Not only revered for its beauty, but also for what we do not see. Deep underground lay some of the richest mineral deposits in the world. It's one of the reasons there are efforts underway right now by the Trump administration to reverse a Biden-era ban on mining near that area. And already steps are being taken for the first underground mine here in 60 years. So in the next half hour, we're going to mine for the truth on how that could impact our state. And there's a lot of layers to consider, from the economy and those working in the mines to the environment and those working to protect it. Let's begin with Chapter 1, the case for mining. In Ely, some are singing an old song. It's called Not in Our Backyard.
Do we take that chance here? Is that okay? This is the fight of our lifetime.
But when that backyard contains one of the largest known deposits of copper, nickel, and cobalt in the world, others are playing a different tune.
This is the right mine for this region.
As the political winds shift, the possibility of hard rock mining near the boundary waters is back on the menu. 2 years ago, the Biden administration banned mining 250,000 acres outside the boundary waters. The Forest Service at the time said mining here would inevitably pollute the boundary waters. Mining experts disagree.
We're opening up mines in Minnesota.
And the Trump administration has vowed to reverse the ban and get America back underground. What are the odds that this is going to happen?
Highly likely.
And what's the time frame on it?
Soon.
Congressman Pete Stauber has introduced multiple times a bill to overturn the mining ban. There's no debate. The world needs these minerals to supply a modern economy. Anything with a wire, anything with a computer, anything with a battery is made with these metals. Currently, the U.S. relies on foreign sources for nearly half of the copper and more than half of the nickel and cobalt used in the country.
We have to use the facts and the science when we go forward and remove the political science.
Around summer, Ely is bustling.
Go Twin Cities!
But as mines closed over the decades, Ely's population dwindled, nearly half what it was in 1950.
There's a lot of seasonal jobs. It's hard for families to, exist on.
Dean DeBeltz, a fourth-generation Ely resident, is helping to lead Twin Metals Minnesota's quest for a new mine.
I realized I had an opportunity to help shape something that we need. I believe we desperately need in this town.
Inside Twin Metals headquarters, we see what this fight is all about.
What we have here is core that's cut, laid out on the table, and where it looks like gold, those are the sulfides.
Sulfide forms when sulfur atoms chemically bind to metal atoms, in this case, mostly copper and nickel.
So this one is 3,198 feet below surface.
And that is what Twin Metals is after.
We take the sulfides out, they go with the concentrates.
But the treasure is also the trouble. When sulfides are dug up and exposed to oxygen and water, they can turn into sulfuric acid. Any leak over time can be catastrophic to a clean environment. It is known as acid mine or acid rock drainage, something the Environmental Protection Agency estimates has polluted 40% of the country's rivers and 50% of the nation's lakes. Is there a way to pull those minerals out without damaging
Definitely.
the waterway?
Definitely, and we have to prove that through a thorough environmental review.
How would they do it? And just how close would a mine be to the boundary waters? Let's go to the map. Twin Metals' mine proposal from 2019 targets what's called the Maturi deposit here, located between Ely and Babbitt, 5 miles from the southwest edge of the Boundary Waters Wilderness area. The project site right next to Birch Lake and the South Cowichan River, which flows into the Boundary Waters. The site plan shows this is where they will dig underground, unlike open-pit iron mines. Trucks would enter the mine through 2 tunnels, digging out different zones called stopes, which are like the hallways and rooms of an underground hotel. They will blast and recover ore between 400 and 4,500 feet underground. Twin Metals says that ore will be crushed below the surface to avoid dust and noise pollution, with a conveyor feeding that ore into a covered plant on the surface, where it is further processed and separated. The metal concentrates are stored for shipment half of the leftover rock goes back to fill in the holes. The other half would be dehydrated and stacked here on the surface. What is the potential for acid rock drainage at the site?
In the studies that we've done and the studies that the DNR has done on Duluth complex material, it's virtually zero. I mean, it doesn't exist.
What does exist is the need for work and a small fortune of benefits for the state.
This is essentially a library of our mineral deposit.
Kathy Grahl, also with Twin Metals Minnesota, says the mine would employ 750 people with 1,500 spin-off jobs in the area, hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes, plus royalties to the state school trust fund.
It's estimated that the mineral resources that are in this region could add to that fund by $3 billion.
They hope the public will view the mine with an open mind.
We've got to be more open to conversation and talking about what it actually is rather than stigmatizing someone and saying, no, it's bad. No matter what you do, it's going to be bad, because that's not what we're about.
For all the people that we found supporting a new mine, we found people dead set against it. Hear from them next. The beloved Boundary Waters, rich in beauty and in minerals, also steeped in controversy. Not all those against the building of the first underground mine in our state in 60 years are against mining in general. Some tell us they just don't want to see it so close to one of the most pristine wilderness areas in the world. And there's more in Chapter 2, The Case Against Mining. Here in Ely, some people say most in town support the mine for its economic potential. Others will tell you that most in town are opposed to the mine for its potential damage to the boundary waters. Statewide, though, a recent Star Tribune poll found that 60% of registered voters in Minnesota are against the mine, with 22% for it. In downtown Ely,
Hi, Becky.
Hi, Becky, Chris.
the Save the Boundary Waters campaign is ramping up for another round in this fight.
I think mining has a place. But the important thing, the important fact, is where you allow mining. And in this particular place, we should not allow mining, not in the headwaters of the boundary waters.
Becky Rahm, a third-generation Ely resident, is the national chair of that campaign. Despite Twin Metals' promises,
That's the path that pollution would flow.
Rahm and other environmentalists believe a sulfide mine at this site would irreparably harm the boundary waters.
Mines are approved based on predicted performance. Everything works perfectly. Our mitigation works perfectly, right? And then you see how it performs in actual mines. And studies show that if the mine is near water, they're wrong. Those modeling results are wrong 9 out of 10 times.
A new study from the parent organization of Save the Boundary Waters examined public pollution data from 8 modern mines in the U.S., 5 of which are underground. The data shows all 8 mines degraded surface water downstream. 7 exceeded their pollution permits for groundwater. For instance, at the Kensington mine in Alaska, sulfate levels increased 50-fold downstream of the mine. At Bear Track Mine in Idaho, mercury levels found in brook trout tripled, making them unsafe to eat by EPA standards.
Right now we're on the South Coishaway River.
From the water, we get a different view, where the river meets Birch Lake. It's also home to 43 residences and 3 resorts.
Right there is where the tailings facility would be. Instead of looking at that beautiful cliff and the red and white pines on top of the cliff, you'd be looking at a 300-foot waste pile of crushed tailings that would be there forever.
What would you need to be convinced that they could do it without pollution?
They can't do it without destroying the landscape and impacting the ecosystem.
You think it's
Period.
impossible, period?
It's a mine. I mean, you have to be realistic. And I say that because I know that every single modern mine in the United States is currently degrading water quality. Technology just doesn't exist.
So yeah, this is our integrated sampler.
Save the Boundary Waters doesn't just talk water, they also test it. Their monitoring led to the EPA designating Birch Lake as impaired for sulfate. The higher levels can be measured 12 miles upstream. The pollution, they believe, came from 2 nearby iron mines.
We've sampled every tributary in this watershed, so we know for a fact that the sulfate is coming from the North Shore mine in the Dunka pit.
As for the money and the jobs at stake, some argue this mine misses the mark.
Right now, it's just too big of a risk.
For years, Congresswoman Betty McCollum has tried to permanently ban copper sulfide mining near the headwaters of the Boundary Waters.
Just because economically right now we put a big price tag in this state and in this country on copper, wars will be fought over water.
In 2018, a Harvard economist independently conducted a study on the mining ban near the Boundary Waters. It concluded mining would offer a temporary boost to the regional economy, but over time would not be sustainable, becoming a net negative to the overall economy. The study said not mining in the region would result in up to 4,600 more jobs and $900 million more in personal income over 20 years.
Do you think mining will inevitably happen there?
It'll never happen because the science is so strong on the damage that this would do to this great place. And I just don't think the American people will let that happen.
What happens next could be decided in court. But for now, one of America's most visited wilderness areas remains at the center of one of the state's fiercest debates. We heard a lot from both sides. Now we wanted to know, what does a modern mine really look like? We found the only copper nickel mine in the U.S. in Michigan. Coming up, we go 3,000 feet underground to get a first-hand look at how it operates. We've been looking at both the costs and the benefits of underground mining in Minnesota as President Trump leads the charge to reverse a ban on such mining near Minnesota's beloved Boundary Waters. Now we go a step further by traveling to Michigan to visit the type of mine that's being proposed here. It's the only operating underground nickel mine in the country right now. Come along in Chapter 3 as we go deep underground to see exactly how it works and how it's going over in its community. 8 miles from Lake Superior, carved into the forest of the UP, is a portal
Pickup in the portal.
to another world.
All truck 15 up.
So yeah, this is the portal. And right here is where we actually entered rock.
At a 14-degree decline, we drive 6 miles underground into the dark abyss to a depth of 3,000 feet.
15's our speed limit underground.
A daily descent for 6th-generation miner Andy Vaughn.
I started mining when I was 22. It's allowed me to see the country and make a good living.
These are the capillaries of the Eagle Mine, a 24/7 operation where beeps, flashing lights, and trembling vibrations fill your senses. It is a dangerous job.
So just watch that right there. That's all loose there, so stay kind of over this way.
We can't go under unsupported ground, so.
Makes sense.
Those dangers countered with strict standards and new technologies.
That's a rebar bolt, so that's a resin, an epoxy, has it glued into the rock there. If there's a fault in there, it'll hold them.
Refuge chambers are placed every quarter mile in the event of collapse, and escape ways are bored from the bottom of the mine.
In the event that there is an emergency, you can get 300 feet above and below, and you get your workout in for the day.
All of that to extract this.
Right there, it's everywhere. See all it looks like it's gold? That's all the nickel.
The mining process begins with a blast.
I'm not part of the stope crew. We make the big holes, then we'll come in and fill them with explosives and boom, let her go.
The ore falls into the cavern beneath it, where it is scooped up or mucked and hauled to the surface. Next step, they have to backfill those holes.
He's got a jammer on the front of this loader. He just keeps pushing it to the back.
Trucks pack a rock and concrete mix into the blown out cavities, making them rigid enough to move on to the next section.
It's got to have enough moisture to make it strong and dry and sticky enough to push up and hold.
Back on the surface, haul trucks loaded with more than 40 tons of ore are covered and then washed to strip away any contaminants. They are now ready for the 60-mile trip to the Humboldt Mill, where the processing begins.
We are at the beginning of the crushing process at the Humboldt Mill, where we process nickel and copper.
Each chunk of rock contains metals, some more than others. To separate rock from metal, the ore needs to be crushed in 3 stages, from boulder to gravel and eventually to fine sand. It's a dusty place, but the dust doesn't go to waste. The particles filtered from the air are tossed back in with the ore during the concentration process.
It's kind of a mix between like dirty jobs with Mike Rowe and get to play with science.
Mike Tyron's worked at Eagle Mine since 2014. Today, he's monitoring the separation tanks, where filtered water is mixed with the ore and certain chemicals to adjust the pH level.
Basically, we can get copper to float and nickel to sink at a certain pH level.
The slurry of bubbling metal is then pressed into copper and nickel sulfide, loaded by rail to be smelted into pure copper and nickel in Canada.
Eagle Mine produces about 2,000 tons of ore every day. The Twin Metals Minnesota mine has a proposal for up to 20,000 tons per day. That's about 10 times the amount of processing as this facility.
We poll the community on what their biggest concerns are twice a year. Number one on the top level of concern, even 11 years in, is still the water. You got to protect the water, the groundwater. Don't mess up the groundwater, don't mess up the surface water.
Those standards include storing tailings underwater. Without access to oxygen, it prevents the acid mine drainage chemical reaction. Any water they use at the mine or the mill undergoes reverse osmosis filtering before releasing it back into the environment. And when it comes to testing ground and surface water to check for pollution, Eagle Mine went a step further.
It's rather unprecedented in the world, and we don't know of another program like it.
Jerry Grant is a biologist with the Superior Watershed Partnership, which opposed the mine before it was built. To help quell concerns, she says Eagle agreed to fund a community environmental monitoring partnership. It allows environmental watchdogs like Superior and the local Keweenaw Indian community to test and track water quality at sites around the mill and the mine.
None of them to date have impacted the environment or pose any impacts to human health. But there are areas that we're still watching and comparing to state and federal standards for water quality.
The Keweenaw tribe also opposed the mine in the beginning, suing to try and stop it. They lost in court, but today there appears to be mutual respect.
I do think that Eagle Mine is an example of a mine that has made serious investments, both financially and time-wise, to build a relationship with the community. Where we're at now is we would consider this a successful mine, but they still have a few more years of operating life, and then we get into that post-closure period.
The ultimate question, can sulfide mining be done without hurting the environment? The track record indicates it's rare, but Michigan's Eagle Mine so far appears to be carving a new path.
As I alluded to in the story, there are some important differences between the Michigan mine and the one proposed here in Minnesota. Among them, who owns it? Why that's such a big deal here when we come back. The Eagle Mine, which you just saw in Michigan, is owned by Canada-based Lundin Mining. Twin Metals Minnesota is a subsidiary of Antofagasta PLC. That is a Chilean mining conglomerate. I asked both Minnesota representatives Pete Stauber and Betty McCollum about a foreign company gaining access to Minnesota minerals.
This lease will allow an Argentinian conglomerate and a subsidiary of that to sort of park right next to our precious natural resource in Minnesota and extract minerals underground. So, do these two things go against each other?
No, because they have to follow our laws. I mean, if a foreign company wants to invest in the United States, they have to follow all of our laws, all of our rules. They have to follow our environmental standards and our labor standards.
Who will own the minerals then, do you know?
The minerals are a global commodity. Right. And the fact of the matter is that we will have an opportunity to purchase these minerals that we know with 100% certainty they were extracted with the best environmental and labor standards. Unlike the 15 of the 19 mines in the Congo owned by the communist country of China.
I think we risk the boundary water. We don't risk the boundary waters. And I believe that those professionals that you talk to, in their mind's eye, they think that they've done everything possible to mitigate a risk, everything possible. But the Twin Metals company and Antofagasta don't have a good record on doing this. So I'm not against mining, but there's some places you can mine and some places you shouldn't mine. And the boundary waters right now, at this moment in time, for a foreign company to extract copper, make a profit on it, send it to China, where China's making money, and then buy it back again on the open market, that's not a good deal for putting that kind of wilderness water at risk.
For the record, Twin Metals officials say there are not plans yet for where ore would be smelted should they get approval to operate. They say that processing options in North America and Europe have been identified. Should the ban be reversed and the federal leases granted to Twin Metals, an environmental assessment would still need to be completed by the Minnesota DNR and the Pollution Control Agency. I want to thank you for learning with us along this way. Remember, you can continue to catch up on the KARE 11 Extras right here on KARE 11 Plus. Just go to the news menu at the top, then scroll down to Extras. I'm Chris Arabsky. Thanks for watching.